Hi, my name is Asher and I'm from Knoxville, Tennessee. So I'm here today to spill the tea on the wildest thing that has ever gone down in my life. Seriously, it is so wild that you might think I'm making it up, but trust me, my life has been like a crazy TV show lately. So, I am a 26-year-old male and I work in the newspaper. Ever since I was a kid, I have been all about storytelling, which is why I studied journalism and electronic media at the University of Tennessee. After I graduated, I snagged a gig as a journalist at a top-notch daily newspaper, and one can usually find me glued to the headlines and hunting down the juiciest stories of the day. I roll out with my trusty notepad, voice recorder, and sharp eye for details, hitting the streets to interview people, gather intel, and witness all the action firsthand. Growing up, my family dealt with some serious financial struggles. Life was not exactly a walk in the park for us. My parents busted their tails to make ends meet. It was tough. I will never forget the stress of wondering if we could even afford basic stuff like groceries or school supplies. And just when things couldn't get any harder, the whole money situation went downhill even more when my parents' relationship hit the rocks. They used to be all lovey-dovey, but then they started fighting more, especially about money stuff. It added a whole new layer of tension to our already tense household. My mom tried her best to keep the peace. Even when things got rough, she would try to calm my dad down and reassure us that everything would be okay. She would crack jokes and try to lighten the mood, but my dad just got more and more distant and started acting all rude like he didn't care about us anymore. There were days when it was just me and my mom at home, waiting for my dad to come back. She would tell me he was just out working extra hard to bring in some cash, but deep down, she didn't really know where he was half the time. And when she finally mustered up the courage to ask him, it always turned into a huge blow-up. After a while, she just stopped asking altogether. And then it happened when I was just 10 years old. My parents split up. And let me tell you, it was not a mutual decision. I remember it like it was yesterday. I was chilling in the living room and was nose deep in a book when suddenly I heard the front door slam. I looked up, and there was my dad barging in like a storm. Before I could even wrap my head around what was going on, he stomped over to where my mom was sitting. And then, out of nowhere, he dropped the bombshell that he wanted a divorce. No warning, no explanation, just like that. "Ryan, what's going on? Why are you barging in like this?" "I need to talk to you, Olivia. It's important." "Okay, but you are scaring me." "What's wrong?" "I have made up my mind. I want a divorce." "What? Ryan, please don't do this. We can work through whatever it is. We have been through tough times before." "I have thought about this for a long time, Olivia. It is best for both of us." "But Ryan, we have Asher to think about. How can you do this to us?" "I have made my decision, Olivia. It's not up for debate." My mom was crying and pleading like anything, but Dad was not ready to budge. "Please, Ryan, think about what you are doing. This is not fair to Asher or to me." "I have made my decision, Olivia. I will be in touch with my lawyer to sort out the details." I watched as my mom broke down with tears streaming down her face and her hands were shaking like crazy. I was lost for words and was trying to make sense of what the heck was going on. But before I could even say anything, my dad was out of the door and left us in a mess of confusion and heartache. Now in the days that followed, my mom tried reaching out to my dad, but he was MIA as usual. Then one day they finally talked, and it turned into a huge blow-up. My mom tried to reason with him and told him she still loved him and all that mushy stuff. But my dad was dead set on one thing: divorce. And sure enough, a few days later, the papers showed up and my mom didn't have much of a choice. She was crushed, and honestly, so was I. Our lives were turned upside down in an instant. There were tears, fights, and way too many sleepless nights filled with worry. Mom already had the whole financial mess on her head, and then on top of it, the divorce thing also came, and all of it really took a toll on my mom's health. It was like watching her slowly fade away, bit by bit. Before all this drama went down, my mom was a vibrant and lively person who was always laughing and was full of energy. But after the divorce, it was like she lost a piece of herself. She tried to put on a brave face and used to reassure me that everything would be okay. But I could see right through it that she was hurting, and it was breaking my heart to see her like that. As time went on, she just seemed to sink deeper into this dark cloud of depression. It was like she could not find her way out of it, no matter how hard she tried. Simple things became overwhelming for her, and our once lively home felt empty and sad. I did what I could to support her, But it felt like I was fighting a losing battle because my mom started pulling away from everyone and preferred to be alone rather than putting on a fake smile for other people. I tried to be strong for her, but I was just a kid, and there was only so much I could do. It was a tough time for both of us, and I wished more than anything that I could just make it all better. After my parents split up, I was still holding on to the hope that my dad would stick around and maybe still be a part of my life, even though he and my mom were not together anymore. But as time dragged on, it was pretty clear that it was not going to happen. There were no calls, no letters, no visits, nada. It was like he had vanished into thin air. At first, I tried to make excuses for him and used to tell myself that he must have his reasons for bailing. But the longer he stayed MIA, the more it messed with my head and it felt like he just up and abandoned me. His silence weighed on me big time, and I kept wondering if he even gave a damn about me and if he regretted ditching our family like that. But eventually, I had to face the fact that my dad chose to dip out of our lives, and there wasn't much I could do about it. It sucked, but I had to accept it and move on. On the other hand, my mom's health was going downhill fast. Aunt Rachel, her friend, was a lifesaver. She would come over all the time to check on Mom when she was feeling really crappy. She tried to be there for me too, but most of the time she was busy taking care of Mom and I felt pretty dang alone during all that, but I just sucked it up and focused on looking after Mom. During the whole divorce mess, I was just a kid trying to make sense of everything. And let me tell you, it was a total whirlwind. But in the middle of all that chaos, there was one person who really had my back, and that was my elementary school teacher, Layla. At home, I tried to act like I had it all under control, but deep down I was freaking out because I was only 10, and this whole situation was way over my head. Looking back now, I realized I was just putting on a front in MS. Layla saw right through it though. She could tell I was struggling, even when I tried to hide it. Miss Layla was not just a teacher, but she was like a guardian angel when everything was falling apart. She had this sixth sense for when things were not right, even when I was trying to act like I had it all together. I will never forget the day when I straight up lost it in class and just started bawling my eyes out. Instead of freaking out or telling me to get it together, Miss Layla pulled me aside and actually listened. She didn't judge or brush off my feelings, she just showed me some real empathy and understanding. "Hey Asher, you seem a little down today. Is everything okay?" "Not really, Miss Layla. It's okay, Asher. You can tell me what's on your mind. I'm here to listen." As soon as she said this, I broke down and started crying like anything. "It's just, my parents, they are getting divorced, and I don't know what to do." "Oh, sweetheart. I'm so sorry to hear that. That's really tough. But listen, you are not alone, okay? It's okay to feel sad or angry or whatever you are feeling right now. And if you ever need to talk or just have someone to listen to, I'm here for you always." "Thanks, Miss Layla. I just feel so lost." "I know, kiddo, but you are stronger than you think, and you have got people who care about you, including me. We will get through this together, okay? You are not alone." From that day forward, Miss Layla was like my personal superhero and used to swoop in to help me deal with all the craziness that was going on at home. She made sure I had a safe space to let out all my feelings and was always ready with a pep talk or a shoulder to cry on whenever I needed it. But she did not stop there and went above and beyond. She saw how tight money was back at home, so she quietly stepped up to lend a hand. From giving me school stuff to grocery gift cards, she was like our guardian angel, easing the burden on my mom. But the weirdest part about it all was Miss Layla was dead set on keeping our little support sessions on the down low. I mean, my mom barely knew her, and she never made a big deal about showing up to any of the school events. And still, whenever I talked to Miss Layla about telling everything to my mom, she used to shut me down real quick. She had all these excuses like wanting to respect our privacy or not wanting to stress my mom out, etc. So I had to get creative with my stories. I would tell my mom that the school was hooking me up or that my buddies were helping out. One time I even spun this wild tale about winning grocery cards in some town game, and my mom was so happy hearing it, so I stuck to not telling her about MS. Layla's help. But the longer this secrecy thing dragged on, the more it bugged me. Like, why was Miss Layla so hell-bent on keeping her good deeds under wraps? Didn't she get that my mom would be stoked to know someone had our backs too? The whole thing just felt off, and it got me wondering if Miss Layla was hiding something big from us. Despite all the love and support, I couldn't shake this nagging feeling that there was more to Miss Layla's secrecy than she let on. Anyway, it was nearing the end of the school year, and I was getting ready to make the jump to middle school. But just when I thought things couldn't get any crazier, I got hit with the heavy news that Ms. Layla was leaving the school. She was not just a teacher, she was like my rock through all the tough times that I had been dealing with, and hearing that she was leaving felt like losing a safety net, and I had to wrap my head around the idea of starting middle school without her around, which was a major bummer, to say the least. I knew I had to talk to her before she left, so I tracked her down for a heart-to-heart. She spilled the beans that she was leaving the school because she was moving to a new city. My heart literally sank hearing that, because losing my favorite teacher and confidante all at once was a tough thing. Saying goodbye also sucked big time, but I was grateful for everything Ms. Layla had done for me. Once she went away and things settled down after my parents' drama, life kind of fell into a routine. Middle school, high school, and then adulthood all rolled by without Miss Layla's guiding hand. But one thing that I still remember is that right after she left, my mom started asking all kinds of questions about her. Like, did she ever say or do anything weird around me? What was she like? And all that. I was very confused because I had never spilled the beans to my mom about our chats, and I was not even planning on it. Eventually, though, with time, Mom stopped bugging me about it. Then as I got older, I kind of stepped into the role of looking after my mom, who was still battling depression. Her mood was all over the place. Sometimes she would be pretty chill and cool, and other times she would be drowning in a sea of sadness. I did what I could to be there for her, and also lent an ear when she needed to vent, but it was a lot to handle. Her depression was like this constant shadow looming over us and sticking around no matter what we did. Life kept chugging along, though. I kept up with school, became a journalist, and tried to carve out a life for myself while juggling my mom's mental health stuff. She had her ups and downs, but she learned to deal with it over time. She became super sensitive, though, and there were moments when her depression would come crashing back in full force. So I never really left home and just stuck around to support her. Things were cruising along pretty smoothly for me when I got this awesome opportunity to jet off to California for some NBA action. It was seriously a dream come true, and I was pumped to cover all the basketball madness for the newspaper. My days in Los Angeles were a total blur of excitement. I was hitting up NBA games, press conferences, and all sorts of behind-the-scenes stuff, soaking it all in like a sponge. But the grind didn't stop when the games ended. As a reporter, I was on a mission to bring the NBA buzz to our readers back home. Whether it was breaking down game plays, profiling the big-name players, or digging into trade rumors, I was knee-deep in the basketball world and was dishing out stories that would keep our readers glued to the page. So I was out in California for this NBA gig and was just soaking in the LA scene and doing my thing, when out of the blue I spotted this young man wearing a scarf that took me way back. It was the exact same scarf my dad used to rock back in the day. Now, this scarf was not just any old piece of fabric, it was practically part of my dad's DNA, as he wore it all the time. Seeing it wrapped around this dude's neck triggered a tsunami of memories and hit me hard. I knew that it could be another scarf and didn't necessarily belong to my dad, but suddenly, I was hit with this overwhelming urge to find out if this dude knew anything about my dad. So, with a mix of nerves and excitement, I sauntered over and asked him straight up if he had ever heard of a guy named Ryan Noel. To my shock and disbelief, the young man's eyes widened in recognition, and he hesitantly admitted that Ryan was actually his dad. Suddenly, it was like everything clicked right into place, and I was hit with this crazy mix of emotions of total surprise, disbelief, and confusion, and I couldn't help but believe that what were the odds that his dad is actually my dad? But I was not about to lose my cool, so I slapped on my best poker face and acted like I was just his father's coworker and had been searching for their house for the past hour. I told him I had got some super important work stuff to hash out with his dad, and so he offered to help and take me to his house. I had a million questions swirling around in my head, but little did I know that I was in for one heck of a surprise when we finally knocked up at their doorstep. We reached there and rang the bell, and you all would not believe who opened the door. It was Miss Layla. Yes, my elementary school teacher. I swear my jaw nearly hit the floor when I saw Miss Layla open the door to my dad's house. Like, what in the actual heck was she doing there? And was this even my dad's place, or was it just some wild coincidence? My head was spinning trying to make sense of it all. I could tell right off the bat that Ms. Layla did not recognize me. Her smile was all warm and friendly when she opened the gate like I was just some random guest. She asked Will about me and then invited me too. So I stepped into the living room, and there was my dad, Ryan, chilling on the couch. It had been years since I last saw him, but I had no difficulty recognizing him. It hit me like a ton of bricks that I had nailed it with my hunch, and that the scarf had led me straight to him. Our eyes lock, and there's this instant spark of recognition, mixed with a whole lot of surprise and guilt on his end, and I knew that he had recognized me too. But before I could even wrap my head around the situation, my dad told Will to go inside, saying that he had some serious business to chat about with me. Will went in, leaving just me, my dad, and MS, Layla in the room. I introduced myself, clearing any doubt, and the vibe of the room got heavy, real quick. Miss Layla's eyes also widened in shock when she finally recognized me, and I could sense a hint of fear on her face. "Hey, Dad." Asher. What are you doing here?" I looked over at Miss Layla and said, "I could ask you the same thing. I'm a journalist now, Dad. I came to cover the NBA matches for the newspaper." Right. Well, what can I do for you?" "Funny you should ask that, considering you have been MIA for, over a decade now?" My dad was visibly uncomfortable at this point, but I didn't care. I wanted answers. "Look, Asher, I know I haven't been around, and I'm sorry for that. There were things going on." "Things? Do you mean like starting a new family and leaving your old one behind?" "Asher, it's not that simple. You don't understand." "No, Dad, you don't understand. You walked out on Mom and me without a second thought. Do you have any idea what that did to us?" I know I messed up, Asher. But I can't change the past, sorry. And you, Miss Layla. What are you doing here?" "I'm sorry, Asher. I know this must be a lot to take in, but please let me explain." "Explain what, Miss Layla? That you were pretending to care about me all those years while you were secretly involved with my dad behind my back?" "I know it may seem that way, but please try to understand that I never meant to hurt you. I truly cared about you, Asher, and I only wanted to help." "Help? By deceiving me and my mom? By getting involved with my dad?" "I know it's hard to see it now, but everything I did because I care about you. I wanted to support you through a difficult time, and I still do." "You were creating that difficult time, Miss Layla. Don't you get it?" The tension in the room was so thick that you could probably cut it with a knife, as my dad and Miss Layla spilled the beans. They came clean about their secret marriage, that they had married right after my parents split up, and how they had moved away to start fresh. They had the nerve to say that they did it for our sake and to maintain our peace. But come on, how could they say that with a straight face when my mom's life turned into a wreck after Dad left? She has been struggling with depression ever since, and my life has been one roller coaster ride of emotions. I couldn't wrap my head around the nerve of my dad trying to paint himself as some kind of hero like he did it all for us. Meanwhile, Miss Layla was trying to justify her actions, saying that she cared about me and all. But come on, if she really did care about me, she wouldn't have been stabbing me in the back at the same time. I mean, sure, she was there for me when I needed her, but knowing she was the one ruining my life from the start felt like a betrayal. It almost made me feel like a pitying object. And all her excuses now? They were falling on deaf ears because I was done with both of them. I was so steamed that I couldn't even find the words to say anything, so I just shut my mouth and let the silence speak for itself. I was totally floored by the bomb they dropped on me, like I was stuck in some crazy soap opera. Like, how could they keep such a massive secret from me all these years? They sat there, practically begging for my forgiveness, and pleaded with me not to tell any of it to Will, who apparently had no clue that his parents were major liars. I just sat there and soaked it all in, and as soon as they wrapped up their little confession, I bolted out of there because I just couldn't stand to be in the same room as them a second longer. I had a flight back home that evening, and let me tell you, it was the longest flight of my life. I could not stop replaying the whole convo with my dad and Miss Layla over and over in my head, and when I finally landed, I was torn about whether to tell it all to my mom or not. I mean, a part of me wanted to spare her the pain of knowing the truth, but another part was itching to find out if she had any clue about what went down. So I mustered up the courage and straight up asked her if she knew anything about my dad's shady moves post-divorce. And let's just say, her answer confirmed my worst fears. "Mom, I need to ask you something." "Of course, honey. What's on your mind?" Did you know about Dad cheating on you?" "Asher, where did you?" "Please just answer my question, Mom. Did you?" "Yes, I did. I did get the news that your dad was cheating on me with your elementary school teacher, but I only found out about it a year after our divorce and there was nothing I could do." Why didn't you tell me, Mom? How could I tell it to you, Asher? You were just a child. I couldn't bear to burden you with that kind of pain. I wanted to protect you from all of this. Mom, I'm so sorry you had to go through that alone. You are so strong for keeping it together all these years. Thank you, sweetheart. I tried my best because I had to protect you. You did more than your best, Mom. You are my hero. The realization that my dad had basically started a whole new life with another woman while leaving my mom in pieces angered me so much, and the fact that my mom knew about it but kept it from me just added fuel to the fire, and I was literally boiling with rage. I couldn't just let them get away with it, and they were going to pay big time for what they did, and so I hatched a payback plan. I knew just where to hit them where it hurt, and that was the hot section of our newspaper. It featured the juicy details of famous personalities' lives, and even though my dad was not some big shot, I figured a juicy scandal like this would make waves. So I tapped into my connections in the newspaper biz and reached out to some of my buddies at our publishing company branch in LA. I spilled the beans on my dad and MS, Layla's dirty deeds, and made sure they got all the gritty details. Now together, we crafted an expose that laid out everything from my dad's cheating ways to MS, Layla's role in the whole mess. It was brutal, but it needed to be said, and the world needed to know how they had wrecked my life. But I did not stop there. I wanted their son, Will, to know the truth too. So, I packaged up a copy of the article and sent it to him and made it look like it came from some fancy schmancy educational institute. He deserved to know who his parents really were. As the article hit the streets, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I know some people might call me petty or say that I took things too far, but I did not give a darn. It was my way of getting even, and I stood by it, with no regrets. I braced myself for the fallout, knowing my little expose would turn their lives upside down, and when my dad finally called, I could hear the rage and disbelief in his voice. He tried to deny it all, but I knew deep down that he was feeling the heat of his own actions. Behind all the bluster, I sensed a hint of shame and regret, a crack in his tough guy facade. Asher, what the hell do you think you are doing? You had no right to drag our family drama out for everyone to see, like this. Hi, Dad, I could ask you the same. But on my part, I'm just standing up for what is right. You call smearing our family's name across the town standing up for what's right. You have ruined us. I did not ruin anything, Dad. You did that a long time ago. You have to take that article down, Asher. You are destroying everything I have built. Sorry, Dad. It is too late for that now. The damage is done. You made your choices, now you gotta live with the consequences. Please, Asher, I'm begging you. Don't do this to us. Maybe you should have thought about that before you cheated on Mom and destroyed our family, Dad. As the dust settled from the bombshell I had dropped, my dad's rage fizzled out and was replaced by a desperate plea for mercy. He begged me to retract the article and to spare him from any more embarrassment and shame. But I just couldn't just undo what had been done, and the truth was out there, and it was not going anywhere. In the days that followed, I got the news all the way from LA that my dad was deep into it all. The fallout from the article hit him pretty hard, turned his friends into foes, and stained his once pristine reputation beyond repair. He tried to save face, but it was beyond repair. Watching him squirm was bittersweet. On one hand, I truly felt like he deserved every bit of the fallout, and on the other hand, it was hard to see him brought so low. But I couldn't let up. The truth had to come out, no matter the cost. In the end, my dad's downfall was a real eye-opener about honesty and the consequences of lying. He figured he could get away with it, but he got a harsh reality check in the name of revenge, that actions have consequences, and the truth always comes out in the end.